Welcome, everyone, to the Everything Show. I am your host, Matrix Lord 212, and I'm with Connor. What's up, Connor?
Hello.
All right, so tell me what's going on with this James Bond situation.
Well, obviously, we've got one more film to go with Daniel Craig, which is coming out next year, directed by Danny Boyle, which is a bold move, to be fair, because he's not really, apart from Trainspotting and Trainspotting 2 and a few other films, he's not really done a massive amount of big blockbuster films. It's a whole new team. It's a whole new writing team. But the new rumor coming out is that Idris Elba is going to be taking over from Daniel Craig. Now, as far as I'm aware, that's not the case. Idris Elba's management have come out and said that as far as that no talks have taken place between Eon, MGM, and Idris. So I don't believe that Idris Elba will be the next Bond for a few reasons, actually. One, he will be too old, I think, by the time that they get Bond 26 off the ground, which will be in about 4 years' time, judging by their work rate.
Daniel Craig's James Bond's not coming out for when?
Daniel Craig's last James Bond comes out
next year.
Yeah, November 8th, I believe.
Right, okay.
And then
the one after that would be like probably 4 years.
The one after that will be probably about 4 years, to be honest with you. Knowing how slow they've been recently in the keeping up with the films, trying to get them released. It's not really been a frequent sort of thing. But as far as I know, I don't think that Idris will be the next Bond. Because
I know his career took off, but later on in life, right? Not he like a late bloomer like some of these other actors. You know,
he'll be going on 50 by the time that Bond 26 even begins filming, and that'll take about a year to film, probably. So he'll be 51 by the time it comes out.
But he's not going to be James Bond for a movie. That's it.
Yeah, and they'll want to get at least 2 or 3 films out of him. So I don't think that his body will be able to keep up with that sort of
work ethic.
Yeah, because it is really.
Daniel Craig said he had the workouts were insane, right? That he didn't even want to do that anymore. But I have a question about the next Bond because the godfather to his kids is Mark Strong, right? That's what I heard, and he said Daniel Craig wants him to be the villain.
Mark Strong actually is in the next film. He posted something on Instagram, a video of him doing a workout, and the caption was, I think it was a load of like United Kingdom flags and hashtag James Bond.
I remember we did, well, I don't know if you were in the cast. We did a cast a while ago. We talked about Mark Strong wanting Daniel Craig to do another one. And their family, because he's the godfather to his kids. And he says if he ever does do another one, it's probably almost definite that he's going to be in it. It's probably a villain. That'll probably be the gag. So it is happening then. Yeah, that was true then. Okay.
Yeah, as far as Bond 25 goes, which is the next one, Daniel Craig's last, they're looking for a female villain. 2 names that have come out of that is Helena Bonham Carter and Angelina Jolie.
Wasn't David Bautista supposed to be a henchman or something?
Well, David Bautista was a henchman in the last one, but there was a lot of talk that he'd return because it wasn't clear whether he died in the last one or not.
Right.
Christoph Waltz, though, is not returning as Blofeld, so they're looking for a new villain, and they're going more down the female route.
Let me ask you a question. Why, with this next Bond film, did they choose someone that does like Trainspotting and hasn't done like a major film? Is it in to have like these new up and coming directors? Like, do they want to grab them before they become mainstream, or like?
even though Danny Boyle hasn't done multi-million-pound films before, he is ridiculously reliable.
Okay.
Everyone in the UK at the very least, I think actually everyone in America knows who Danny Boyle is. Like he's one of those directors that's kind of always been in the public eye. You know, he did that Steve Jobs film a couple of years ago with Michael
Oh,
Fassbender
okay.
and Kate Winslet. He's done loads of like little films that you just
So he's a
see.
team player. Everybody loves him, basically. He
Yeah, he's
just,
been nominated for a shit ton of Oscars. Yeah,
I,
he's kind of gone under the radar, but he's very popular. He's a very popular guy. He's a very popular director. I personally think he's a great choice. To be fair, for
now,
Bond.
I remember there was a lot of negotiations going on. Daniel Craig had said some stuff like he would never come back, and he said some big mean things too, right? And I know that the payday, they
Yeah,
kept changing the pay amount, right?
yeah,
I mean, I think it's pretty
yeah,
huge right now. Like,
yeah. It's going to be probably about 500,000 for the film. Probably
well,
more.
how much?
£500,000, which will probably be about.
Isn't he getting like 20? Is he getting like 25 million or 27 million, or is he like?
In fact, yeah. Actually, I tell a lie. It might well be pushing that. It might be
Is
pushing.
that because I don't know the transfer of pounds with.
I'm not totally sure on the payday because they haven't revealed it. But
I know when I was talking about it in the past, like they kept raising it.
yeah,
It was really significantly, like, it was nice. I mean, I don't remember anybody ever. I don't think anybody in history is getting what he's getting.
yeah, they could not buy him back at first. It was
Yeah,
as you said, they were just
they
increasing.
spent some money basically. Yeah,
Yeah, they did. They spent a significant amount.
which, you
But
know what, if he deserves it, I think. So
yeah,
why not?
I think by far he's the best Bond,
I
and
mean, his movies are the most, like, Skyfall was like the most successful Bond in history, right?
yeah,
I think it was like over a
yeah,
billion dollars, right?
yeah. Um,
Oh, I want to ask you another question too. Isn't this also going to be the first time in history? Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they getting Adele again to do the theme song, like the beginning song, or no?
no,
Was that
no.
just talk?
That's just talk. The person that is believed to be doing the theme song, which is apparently a leak, but it's not been confirmed nor denied,
So
is
she's not doing it.
no, she's not doing it. It's Dua Lipa, who is a very popular um,
Who?
Dua Lipa.
I don't know her.
Yeah, she's very popular.
Oh, she is.
I know her. She's really good. She'll be great if she is
Is
the
she
one.
huge over there, like in the
Yeah, she's
UK?
massive.
She is.
Yeah, she's massive everywhere. She
Does she
really is.
have? She has hits here, or
She probably will do actually. Yeah,
oh,
she'll
she
be on
don't
the
have
book.
anything yet, right? I gotta listen to her. Send me a link if you
Yeah,
got
I'll send
something.
it.
I'll listen. I'll listen to her.
Yeah, yeah. She's been obviously. Yeah, Adele has been talked about as returning to do this theme, but
What's
very
the
little.
budget for this film? They really, is this going to be the biggest Bond budget in history, or no?
I doubt it
No.
because MGM and Eon, the studio, is going through a bit of financial issues. And Danny Boyle, as a director, is someone that can take a really small budget and make something really big out of it. Like he can do loads with just a small budget. So I guess that's why they hired him, because he doesn't need a big budget to work for that sort of movie. So I
Right.
kind of see the logic in that. So I don't necessarily think it'll be the most expensive Bond film of all time, but it'll no doubt be a great one because it's Daniel Craig's last, and he is one of the most popular Bonds of
Yeah.
all time. So it's got to be huge. You know, it's got to be a bar setter. It's got to be better than Skyfall, I think, to be a
Now,
success.
um, do you think it's wise to take like a little break after him, like 4 years, 5 years, or do you think that's too long?
I personally think it's too long. I like a Bond film every like 3 years.
Okay.
But they're going to obviously have to go through the process of casting someone else and then getting a director and then getting writers on board and getting all the casting crew ready and everything.
So what about all this stuff about the Bond legacy? Like, the integrity of the films. I mean, we heard people speak out. There's a lot of movements going on. A lot of people have spoken out that they want a female James Bond. Isn't it set in stone where, like, the creator had put something in there that basically they can never, like, hurt the reputation and everything of James Bond by changing him into a female or changing everything about the character, make him totally unrecognizable? Isn't there something in place, like some type of will or some type of thing that says that they're not allowed to do certain things for James Bond?
Well, because James Bond is based off a series of books,
Yeah.
He has to stay a male. I would not accept a female.
So why who's in charge of the estate, right? Or is any, like, the descendants, like females, are they running the estate of James Bond? Like, who's running the estate of James Bond right now?
Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson at the moment.
Now, Barbara, is she a daughter or a granddaughter, or like,
no?
What is she?
But pretty much the whole estate, the Ian Fleming estate, pretty much gave them everything. And to be fair, there is nothing apart from the character of Bond himself. There's nothing really left for them to do from Fleming's original work, because they've adapted pretty much all the novels into films.
But they can't turn him into a female.
I don't.
They're not allowed, right? I mean, I thought that's what it was, that they weren't allowed.
They can.
They can.
Yeah, because they've discussed it apparently. But
so Barbara has spoken out that she is open to the idea of being Jane Bond.
Yeah, but I wouldn't accept it. I would. That's one gender swap too far. I can accept the Doctor changing into a female, because
I know Jodie Whittaker wanted a Jane Bond though. But did she ever? Is she a James Bond fan though?
I have no idea. Even stuff like Ocean's 8 and Ghostbusters, I can accept that, but James Bond changing that into a female,
I can't accept that either.
Just make a female spy film,
Well, I mean, didn't they do a movie? Charlize Theron, wasn't she like? She had her own thing. She's like James Bond, like Atomic Blonde or something.
Atomic Blonde or something.
Why can't you just make a new character? Like, you can't just.
In fact, they're doing a spy thriller with Lupita Nyong'o, Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Marion Cotillard, and some. I think it's Bing. She was in the X-Men films. Can't remember her name, but it's like a group of female spies, and the guy that directed X-Men Dark Phoenix is doing it.
And is there a male lead in it?
No, it's all female. So they've.
Do you know what the name of that is?
I think it's 355. Okay. It was announced last year, I think. I'll send you a link to that.
Okay. We also got a green light that Atomic Blonde 2 is going into production. So that's a success. I mean,
there's loads of there's loads of spy films out there that's got female leads. I'm sure.
Like, you don't need to touch James Bond.
Keep James Bond as it always has been.
So if they let's just say worst case scenario they did that, right? Wouldn't that kind of destroy the future of James Bond? Like, would they be able to recover? Like, if they did a Jane Bond and it bombed, right? Would they immediately do a James Bond movie with a man and then try to fix it? Would it destroy?
I don't know, because honestly, I've never thought about how the franchise would be with a female lead.
I mean, I know that there's been times that there was movies that weren't as successful, but I've never had I don't know, man. I mean, it's just a thing where I would think that if they did do that and it really did really horrible,
commercially, Bond films have never done that bad. They've always grossed highly, box office wise. They've always.
That's what I was saying. I don't remember a time when, and I could be wrong. I don't remember a time when it didn't, where it wasn't ever in jeopardy. With like, I don't know if we're gonna do another one because I growing up, my dad was a huge James Bond fan, and I don't even know what it was. And he took me to see everything really, and we went to movies, and I'm like, I was just hooked because I'm like, oh, this is cool, and it's like I was like, when's the next one? And back then it was like we didn't have the internet, and we had to rely on a magazine, well, magazines that, or even like newspapers, and I mean, I was young, really young. I mean, I remember seeing Moonraker on, I think it was on TV. I saw the Roger Moore movies I went to see.
Yeah.
And I saw Octopussy in the theaters. I saw A View to a Kill, I think.
Yeah. The good thing about the films in them days is that if you always remember, at the end of the end credits, they always said James Bond will return in.
Yes.
The Spy Who Loved Me, for example.
Yeah.
They always had that. So you always knew that a film was coming, but you just never knew when.
Yeah.
But these days, you're waiting. I mean, by the time Bond 25 comes out, it would have been 4 years since Spectre.
Right.
And I remember being on this very cast talking about that just coming out. It's ridiculous. It's been such a long way. It's unnecessary.
We've done so many casts over the years.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that like years passed. It's like, wow. It's like we have talked about that. It's a long time ago. But yeah. Wow. I mean, we'll probably be here another 10 years talking.
Yeah, it is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then they do need to find a way to bring out Bond films more often. Maybe every 2 or 3 years. Other than that, I think
2.5, 2.5, 3.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't want it to be a situation where people get too comfortable with it every 2 years, because then there's a chance that something can get screwed up. Like 3 years is good. Like 2.5, 3 years is good, but like I don't want it to be where they feel they have to put it out every single 2 years, and if it's not ready, it's not ready. You know what I'm saying?
I think the Star Wars, like with Last Jedi, and then 6 months later you had
that was terrible.
Yeah.
That I got to tell you, I know a lot of people are up. That's another subject. I don't really want to. I want to talk more about James Bond, but like I hated Last Jedi, and I didn't even go see Han Solo. That's how angry I was. And it was like I don't like when they retcon things. So if they did this to James Bond, I'd probably be really upset with it. Like.
Yeah.
I when I was a kid, they came out with, well, I don't even know if I was a kid. Was I a kid or was I a teenager? I don't remember. But they came out with a James Bond Jr., like cartoon or something, and I refused to watch it because I was like, Dad, this is not, how could they do this? This is not for kids. This is ridiculous. And I was just like, I never saw an episode. Because I was like, that's not what James, So I was very, boom. So I don't know if they did the James Bond thing, I'd be angry. I wouldn't. I don't think I would. It'd be a long time, but
yeah, doing films like every year or like Star Wars have been doing. That's too much, but every 2 or 3 years, I think is a decent enough time. To be fair,
stuff goes wrong, and then they got to fix things. And it's. I don't want it to be where they just rush it out, and then it's not ready. If it's not ready, it's not ready.
I mean, again, like with Lucasfilm, all them changing of directors and stuff, like firing the 2 Lego movie people and then replacing them with Ron Howard and stuff like that.
Well, you know what it is? They were constantly firing. I mean, the guy that did Rogue One, right? He left, and then they got somebody else, right? And that was just about done. It was like, like they had so then they had those 2 guys that were from Solo. They're gone. They fired the guy, Trevorrow, right?
Yeah.
And then J.J. Abrams came back, right? But I think what Lucas, they wanted to get like the up and coming, talked about directors, but not necessarily that the directors might be good. Like they never really sought to have the best directors for the best movies. And it's like, stop trying to be hip and just try to make sure you solidify your place with the Star Wars legacy, make sure the movie's perfect, you know? And then when it comes out and it's not perfect, and then it's not only is not perfect, but it's like, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
if every franchise started doing that,
when
like if
50% of your fan base hates it,
yeah,
it's terrible. I mean, it doesn't matter because you just created for the first time ever your own fan base with Star Wars is split down the middle, like down the middle. Like Doctor Who's always everybody's in a million factions, but Star Wars now is like boom, right down the middle. And then you throw Solo out there, and it was like bad timing.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, if Bond started chopping and changing with directors like that, you'd wonder where the franchise was going. Probably the same with Marvel as well. The Star Wars is kind of an example of how I wouldn't want James Bond to end up.
you know, with Star Wars, I waited decades for them to do a sequel to Return of the Jedi. I remember I was so hungry for Star Wars that when they came out with the special edition movies of the original, I waited online for 6 damn hours with my fiance at the time. Like we were online for 6 hours to see a special edition of a movie that was out for like so many years, you know? And that was just a special edition. And when I saw the prequels, I had chills. Like, I was like, oh my God, you see the crawl, the crawl and everything. I went all over and I bought, there was like promotions to buy the cups. And I went to, it was KFC and then there was toys. There was like tons of stuff. And I was into it. And I think Joe was a baby. Like, he was really small, I think, when that came out. And like, when we got Force Awakens, all right, I thought it was good. I liked it, but it wasn't like what I was expecting it to be, But when Last Jedi came out, it's like you wait all these decades for your hero to return, Luke Skywalker. They even built it up in Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
You get this map, it's in so many parts, and you're going to find the thing, the Luke Skywalker. And then it's like when you get two different writers and you try to connect it and they don't connect, it's like that Lego piece that doesn't connect with that piece, or or a puzzle piece. It just doesn't fit, you know? And Luke Skywalker takes the lightsaber and he just throws it. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it just, to me, it was like you killed, like you don't want to know that one of your heroes when you grew up failed and is depressed and is on a like he gave up on his sister and he gave up on his best friend and he just left them to deal with the mess that he created. Like, that's the worst thing ever. So, and then when he dies, it's like, what the hell is this? So I was not feeling it at all. And it was so, I mean, I talked about it so many times on this cast, it's ridiculous. It was so, like, destroying the legacy for me. I was, like, so angry. I will not have that in my house. I have every Star Wars movie. I won't have that in here. Like, I won't. I just don't want it in. I just do not accept it. And I think that's part of the reason why, for the first time in history, I didn't go see a Star Wars movie, meaning Han Solo, which is bad. I mean, it's like, I never thought I'd see the day that it would affect me that way. But
I mean, I've enjoyed every Star Wars film since they came. Like, Force Awakens is by far the weakest of them. But I think, with James Bond, going back to James Bond, I think I would expect such a higher level from them than what, to compare it to Star Wars, what Star Wars are producing. Like the way that Lucasfilm managed their team, so like directors, writers, and everything. I wouldn't, like, James Bond would be in a real bad shape if they just kept changing the directors because someone didn't agree with someone's direction, or they didn't agree with the tone of a particular film. I think it's just.
I think in a way James Bond is in a sense a higher caliber, because you know what it is with James Bond. We always got where James Bond movies coming out. He's like, okay, and you never felt with a James Bond movie that the movie was ever in jeopardy of anything. Yeah. Because they always had it where it was coming out and you never felt uneasy. You never felt like, oh, really? I've never felt that. It was always like, they know what they're doing. They're putting it out. I don't even need to see a trailer. I just know. You know, it was just something that was. They always gave you a fantastic product, and you would never even question it, and you wouldn't even need to see a trailer. Like I was always biased with the
Yeah.
Bonds because I never had an inkling where it was like a thing.
Like you never feel like the franchise is going to end
Never,
based on one bad film. Like
never, no.
sometimes the quality of the films been
Right.
bad, but
Even when if there was a Bond I didn't like, right? I still like the films. I still like I still like the whole thing of it, and I still wound up watching it a lot. But I mean, I think Timothy Dalton I liked the less of all, but I did still watch it whenever it was on. You know what I'm saying? But it just I never felt that it was never any negative emotion when I knew there was a James Bond movie. I think even when we were talking about it on these casts, I was like instantly accepted. It was going to be a hit. We didn't even, there was times we didn't even have a trailer, remember?
yeah,
And it was just, that's it. There was never I don't think there was ever anything. Well, other than Star Wars. Star Wars was always thing, but then there's things that happened there was doubt with. Well, we never had an issue with Bond where there was like an Alien 3 or a friggin' Last Jedi or something that was a bad apple.
yeah,
You know?
exactly. That's what I mean. You never feel like James Bond is ever in any sort of.
But if Jane Bond came out, that would be the bad apple.
Then
That would be
exactly
100% the bad apple.
Yeah, this is the point I made. It would be the worst decision that they've ever made. It would be horrible. Just make a spy film with a female on its own credit. You don't have to change a franchise up just to, get that commercial success for that particular gender to take on a spy film. But yeah, like I think James Bond should always stick to how it has been, like have a British male.
But I think it always worked because Ian Fleming was in the military as well. And he had that military background. And it was like, he knew the way certain things were supposed to be. He was all up to date with weapons and everything, right? So it was always like James Bond had the best gadgets, best stuff, right? And the villains, like he always he dealt with that himself. So
James Bond has never. The thing I like about James Bond is that it's never really followed trends. So, for example, like the recent trend, obviously, is the gender swapping. I never felt like James Bond has ever felt like it's had to follow one of them sort of.
Like it would never got political, did it? Like I don't remember it being
no,
like.
No. But it sometimes
they never even talked about Brexit, whatever. That wasn't even in the last. I mean, that wasn't.
No. But
they never.
Well, it was before Brexit. It was the last one, but during the Cold War and stuff, like James Bond films were coming out, and it would very rarely.
Yeah.
They would sometimes obviously have the whole Americans against Russian situation, but that's what Bond was based. In the books, it was always sometimes America against Russia, but obviously because James Bond is British, Britain against Russia. So it would always be that Russia was the big bad of the Bond universe.
Didn't you guys have a special? Wasn't there a series or somebody in Fleming, or a thing like a few years ago?
Yeah, there was a TV series.
There was a TV series, right? Was that well received, or?
I never saw it. I can't remember who. I think it was Dominic Cooper.
Okay.
Playing, Fleming.
Okay.
Who's done a load of shit.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. Yeah. But the interesting James Bond has kind of died a little bit because it's been so long. But
there's one question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I like comedy also, and I always liked the Austin Powers movies. But I knew, like Austin Powers, they're taking a shot at, James Bond. And I always heard that they almost getting sued all the time because they don't want that to mess up. Did you ever feel that Austin Powers was ever a thing that would mess up the double, James Bond
In fact,
legacy, or they just
in
considered it a
fact,
parody?
we've talked about Austin Powers before on the cast when talking about Bond, and I've always said that I hated the Austin Powers films, and
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
like it.
Right.
It's not my. Mike Myers is great, but I don't think that Austin Powers is for me.
Right.
But I don't mind them existing.
Right.
The fact
But
that
you don't think you feel like they don't like that as well? Like they don't want them at all? Like didn't they try to sue them a couple of times? Weren't they going to do titles like Thunderballs or some shit? Like they were going to. Austin Powers had these raunchy titles that they had ideas for, and it was like, I guess they didn't want that to come out when James Bond came out.
Well, what was the three? It was it The Spy Who Shagged Me or something?
The Spy Who Shagged Me. Well, it was Austin Powers International Man of Mystery.
Yeah.
Spy Who Shagged Me and Goldmember.
Yeah, so obviously two of them is based off of.
And Goldmember, I think, might have got sued because Goldfinger, like they were like, okay.
Yeah,
they weren't.
I've never heard of them outright suing them.
Okay.
But I don't think that they mind really them being a thing.
I mean, back in the day growing up, Roger Moore appeared in Cannonball Run as Roger Moore, but they try to like make it like he's James Bond, and they took the. Did you ever see it?
Well, no, but Roger Moore is the closest you're probably ever going to get James Bond to being like Austin Powers.
Right, but you never saw Cannonball Run?
No, I never saw Cannonball.
And they did a variation of you got to see it. If you get a chance, I don't know if you like comedy, but if you get a chance, because Roger Moore is in it, check out Cannonball Run. It's with it's with Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise. There's a whole bunch of, at the time, like the biggest stars.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And they were doing a race from one point to another point, and they win millions of dollars, whatever it was. And he was like insinuating like he is James Bond, even though he's an actor. They had a variation on the music. He had the car. It was great. He had a woman all the time. It was hysterical. You got it, because they even had Jaws in it.
Yeah.
They had him in it too, and he was with Jackie Chan.
Is that the film where they drive? Is it the car into the river and there's the boat on the lake, and there's like the boat of old men, like there's three old men in the wooden boat on the lake or something.
I'm trying to think.
George, Richard Keel, and I think it is. Yeah, I think it's Jackie Chan. I think I have seen a scene from it before.
It's one of my favorites, like funny movies.
Yeah.
Like but it's great because at the time I'm always going to James Bond movies when I was a kid, and he's in there. I'm like, and of course they have actors in the movie, so it brings you into. Yeah, Burt Reynolds is Jackie Chan was very young. Very young, and it was like he was the hottest thing back then. And he was in it, and they had the women in it that were in different movies, like horror movies and different, So, check it out. I think you can watch it somewhere.
Yeah.
There's two Cannonball Runs, but I think Roger Moore was in the first one. I'm pretty sure he was in the first one. So, but I remember too, and not to go off topic, but I started with Roger Moore, and I didn't know. I watched later on Sean Connery ones, right?
Yeah.
But my dad took me to see Never Say Never Again, and I was like, well, but Dad, that's not, I was like kind of confused. And my dad said, just watch it. It's, that's James Bond. So then, like after I saw Never Say Never Again, and I know that's not canon, right?
Yeah.
But then I started watching it after that. Like my dad's like, all right, this is on ABC or it's on what I think it was on ABC all the time. I think before there was cable, we had like 4 channels, 3 or 4 channels, 3 channels or 4, whatever it was. At the time, there was no cable, there was no nothing. We only had channels. We turned the dial, and I think it was always on ABC. And they had, and then I started seeing, as time went on, Sean Connery's ones, and all of them. I had to go backwards,
Yeah.
But like I remember like seeing that, and I was just confused because I was like, I remember, it's like you go see Roger Moore, and then all of a sudden it's like, who's that? It's like, but that's not, because as a kid I didn't understand. Just an actor, different actor taking over. It was like, But when I saw Doctor Who, like that, clicked with me. But anyway, What else I want to say? And how many books did he do?
Oh, good question. I think it's 15. Sure, it's 15.
15.
Yeah.
When did he die?
Is it 60 something? 60. Oh, Christ. Let me check.
Okay.
I think it's in the 60s.
He
I'm
died
sure
in
it's
the
in the
60s.
60s.
Wow.
Yeah, 1964.
Isn't that amazing how like all this stuff survives a test of time and he's not even alive, right? Isn't that's awesome, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that's just unbelievable, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That he entrusted people with his legacy and they made it so, that's amazing.
Well, he died 2 years after the first film came out, and they've done 22 films since then, pretty much.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's continued on way after.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just, a lot of times, a lot of these franchises that we watch, something happens and then you get a bad one. And I just don't want this to have a bad one. I just don't. And the only time I think it would ever be a bad one is if they do Jane Bond. Jane. Oh God, I can't even get it off my tongue.
Jane Bond.
Yeah, Jane Bond. Yeah. Please no. When is this going to end? With that, John. I hate the John to swap and thinking John over. You know that, but
yeah.
All right. So the date is November
8th, 2019.
November.
Yeah.
Now you guys get it first, obviously, right? Or no?
Yeah, I think we get it the day before you.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Day before. All right. How old is he going to be?
Daniel Craig, I think he's in his 50s now, I think.
Jesus Christ. But you would never know because the way his work ethic, right?
He's exactly 50.
Wow.
Yeah, he looks as young as he used to.
Yeah,
he's not really.
He's
not really.
Yeah.
He's put on weight in between each film, but every time there's a film that's coming up.
Yeah, but they have a long, extensive. Like they won't even start filming unless he's in top shape. Like
he like works.
Isn't it like a whole year before?
Yeah,
like he's working out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mark Strong is always a good villain, though, I mean, I don't know if he's going to be a villain in this one or one of the villains or whatever, but, right? How many times has he played him? He's always played a villain. Most of the time.
He always play a villain, yeah.
Sometimes he plays good guys, but, I mean, he's fantastic. I mean, Sherlock, he was Blackwood, right?
Yeah.
And then in Kick-Ass, and he was, like, in the new Shazam movie, he's a villain. The main villain, I guess. I mean, he's just always a villain. It's just, but he always looks so different, Makeup, whatever, even his accent changes,
Yeah.
I always been a fan of his. Kingsman. How do you feel about Kingsman, though?
I've only seen the first one. I liked it. I did. Okay. I liked it a lot, actually. It was good.
You think it's like you think that takes away anything from James Bond? I mean, or no?
No, I don't really see it the same as James Bond. To be honest, I see it a little bit different. So.
Okay. Now, why that's another thing is like James Bond. Does it ever? I'm trying to think when I was little if there was any. There might have been very few that they had any like toys or anything. Right? That never really has toys.
Yeah.
Right?
And they don't really do.
They don't really do merchandising like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So thank you, Connor.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye for now.